Hey everybody, my name is Daisha and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm starting a reading vlog where I am reading my subscribers / followers best books of 2024. I will be reading 4 books in this reading vlog. I kind of started this reading vlog without a plan. I'm filming this intro after I've read all of the books because only 2 books I had were repeated multiple times and I didn't want to just do 2 books. So the rest of them I kind of mood read and just picked books that were off my TBR and stuff like that. So I asked on my Instagram story people's best books of 2024, and I also asked over on my community tab. So thank you to everybody who sent in your books. I definitely added a lot of books to my TBR, but I wasn't able to get through every single book in this video. So the first book that was repeated twice that I will be reading in this reading vlog is The Women by Kristin Hannah. This is a Vietnam War historical fiction book by Kristin Hannah, a super popular historical fiction author. And then another book that was repeated twice is called Demon's Dream, and this is a black urban romance, and this book is 800 pages and has no audiobook. And so I tried to get through it and it be my last book of this reading vlog, and I talk about it at the end of the video because I just filmed the outro. But I just was not able to get through this book in time for this reading vlog to go up at an appropriate time. I'm only 20% of the way into it because I've been trying to read other books for other reading vlogs too, and because there's no audio and it's literally 800 pages, I just was not able to get through it in time. But I will still be reading it and talking about it because I am loving it. I'm really sad that I wasn't able to read this one for this reading vlog, but I actually want this reading vlog to go up, and to do that I have to really think about that and prioritize actually getting the video up over reading one last book for the reading vlog. Then I'm also reading The Horror by David Sodergren. This is a super popular horror book that's been popping off the past couple years on booktube. I would say the last 2-ish years, and going into this one I did not know much about it, so I'm not going to say too much now. And then I also picked up a thriller, and that is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. This has been one that's been on my TBR since it came out because my friends really love this one. It is basically strangers on a train type vibe where 2 people meet and they're like, I'll kill for you if you kill for me. And then the last book that I read for this reading vlog is I Who Have Never Known Men, which is a classic book that's been recently republished, and a lot of people have been reading this one, and it's kind of apocalyptic, kind of not. And that's the last book that we will be reading for this reading vlog. So those are the 4 books that I'll be reading, and let's just start off with the first pick that I read for this reading vlog, and that was The Woman by Kristin Hannah. So I have started The Woman by Kristin Hannah. I still don't have my physical copy because my book of the month box was delayed because of one of the add-ons that I added on. But I'm really enjoying this one so far. I'm about a third of the way in, and I've never read a Kristin Hannah before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I kind of assumed that her writing would be easy to read just because she has so much mass appeal. And that's what kind of intrigued me to her books, is because I'm not normally a historical fiction reader, but a lot of people that I know or watch who aren't huge historical fiction readers still really love her work. And I think it is because her writing is so accessible. It has so much heart and description in it, but it's very, very easy to read and doesn't really hurt your mind to read it, which some historical fictions definitely do. And her writing just feels like it is a normal modern day literary fiction that just happens to be set in the past. And so that's what I'm really liking about this work. I did kind of critique this a little bit in my TBR because I don't really have a problem with Kristin Hannah specifically, but I just find it interesting that what other author in historical fiction is this popular? Literally nobody. And of course it's going to be the author who only writes white stories. And I know a lot of white authors don't feel comfortable writing about stories of people of color, which is completely understandable because you don't really want to write from a perspective or a history that's not your own. But Kristin Hannah already is writing perspectives that are not her own because she's researching and writing about, in this case, a nurse who went to Vietnam during the Vietnam War. She wrote about 2 French sisters in The Nightingale, which I haven't read. I know in The Great Alone, I think it's following a family that moves to Alaska. Those are none of her stories. Those are none of her perspectives. She's researching them and then writing them. So I would really like to see her come out with maybe something that focuses on history that isn't just white. I would really, really like to see that. But I do really wish that we also had some authors of color that were even close to the amount of popularity as Kristin Hannah, because there literally is nobody even close, even touching her. I really wish that we put more focus on stories of people of color and black people because their history is so rich and diverse and nuanced, and we don't really get to explore that as much because all we ever see thrown in our face is Kristin Hannah, Kristin Hannah, Kristin Hannah, which is fine. Again, as I said, I just wish that we saw a little bit more diversity. This book does actually have a black character in it, which I do kind of critique. a little bit. I will tell you all the synopsis and then I'll get into like my likes and dislikes so far. In this one we follow our main character Frankie in 1965, and she lives in Southern California. It's very like idyllic. She lives with her conservative parents who definitely try to shelter her, but the Vietnam War obviously has started, so her brother has shipped off to Vietnam, I think in the Navy, but she decides that she can actually see a future for herself and she wants to help people. So she decides that she wants to become a nurse, but nobody would really like ship her off immediately except the army. So she ends up going with the army and goes to Vietnam during the Vietnam War. I personally don't know much about Vietnam. None of my older family has served in the military branches. I have some like cousins that have, and I do have an uncle, but he's not blood related to me, who served in one of the branches, but I don't think it was during the war because it seems a little bit before his time. And both my grandfathers, even if they did, they passed away before I was born, so I would never even have been able to talk to them about it. I just know it caused a lot of uproar in America, but I don't know much about the war itself. So obviously Frankie is working in hospitals, almost on the front lines. Where I'm at in the story, she's at a different hospital than where she started out at. So those have been different experiences. I've been really appreciating that. And we don't get too much of like the combat aspect of the story, but of course there is danger to everybody who's serving over in Vietnam. So seeing that perspective is very interesting, but I really wouldn't be interested in the combat anyways. Like, I'm really glad that one of the most prolific historical fiction writers of our day writes women's stories, because I think that's so important, and I love seeing her as a nurse. I'm very interested in nursing. Like, if I could go back, I honestly might be a nurse. I'm just really not good with like fluids, so I don't know, that's like the only thing that would really hold me back. But if I could go back and start over college and everything, I would potentially be a nurse, because you can make some bread in nursing too, honestly, and I love to help people, and I think nursing is so fascinating, except the fluids and having to wipe people's butts part, which I of course applaud nurses for doing that because I know that it's necessary, but for me, I would be a little ugh. And so it's really interesting not just to see like what's going on in Vietnam, but obviously we're seeing the injuries and like them also trying to help like the local Vietnam villagers in the area with the medical conditions that they have going on, and her forming relationships with other people, the women and the men over there who are nurses and doctors, and seeing her form those relationships, but those relationships not always working out necessarily because people are dying, people are getting shipped back home. So seeing that is very interesting, in her emotions. I really am enjoying like the emotional aspect of this, and seeing that wave of like her feeling very down but then feeling empowered by what she's doing, but obviously hurting for everybody else around her. So seeing those emotions is very interesting for me. We've also begun to see through the media that Frankie is consuming, and also from like little notes from her parents and stuff, that there's uproar happening in the United States against the Vietnam War, like protesters and stuff like that. And in the synopsis, I pulled it up to make sure that I'm not spoiling anything happening in the story. It does say that the war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. So I'm guessing that the story is going to have a lot post-Vietnam and like Frankie in America. So I'm really interested to see that as well, because I did not know that going in. I thought we were just going to follow Frankie in Vietnam, and I had no idea until I literally pulled up the synopsis right now. So that'll be a very interesting take to see. I'm really excited about that, but I'm going to continue on with the story, hopefully make it another third of the way in. This book is honestly flying by. I've always been scared of Kristen Hanna books because her books are literally bricks. This one honestly is not super long, I think, in comparison to some of her other books. It's a little over 400 pages. The audiobook is only 15 hours, which is not bad at all. So I'm going to continue on with this one and come back to y'all when I have more thoughts. We are back to curls. I haven't had curls since like October. It's been a solid 3 months since I had curls, so we're back. Honestly, at first I was like, I don't know if I like this anymore, but it's growing on me. It's growing on me. That's how I was when I went to straight, so it's kind of weird. But I've had a very, very busy day. I had to go run errands because my car, the driver's side door, has not worked for a couple months. I should said a couple months. Probably for like a month. It has not worked. So I have to like climb over everything like to get out the passenger side door, and it's a hassle. So obviously my parents want to fix the door. It's their car. So they want to fix the door, and I needed to run like my last errands, like get groceries, pick up orders that I had at stores, because I ordered yarn for my ratings blanket, which I'll talk about more later, but I'm doing a ratings blanket, a crochet ratings blanket, and so I had to pick up the yarn from Michael's and Joann's, and so it was just a process today. And I had to wash my hair, which takes like 2 hours alone to wash and style. So it's been a crazy day, but through all of that, I've been able to get through another third of The Women, and I am still really liking this story. We have now gotten to the part in the synopsis where it says that Frankie comes home, and I don't want to like talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but I have been really liking this part because we're seeing like how America has reacted to it, and we're also seeing Frankie and like her reaction to the war, and like and the knowledge that she's been gaining from being back in America, and seeing how other people are reacting to the war. And also I've been really liking to see Frankie's growth. Like obviously when she went into the war, she was like a 20-year-old girl with no life experience, and now she literally went to war for 2 years and is back. So seeing her grow into a woman, and like her relationship with her parents has completely changed, seeing that, and seeing her bond with her friends that she made over in Vietnam again. And we've also seen her have some sort of like romantic relationship or love for different people throughout the story, and that's been really interesting as well. I've been liking that. I do think the first part of the story was my favorite when she was in Vietnam, but seeing her back has been really interesting. As I said, I really just did not know much about the Vietnam War besides that it was a very controversial war, so seeing it more in depth and from this perspective has been very fascinating for me. And I even told my dad, I was like, I'm reading a historical fiction about the Vietnam War. Never ever did you ever think I was gonna do that, did you? Okay, period. I'm eating the girls up. The girls being my dad. My dad is a history buff. I really like history too, but my dad is a history buff, so that's why I'm like, yeah, you never thought I was gonna do that, huh? But I'm really liking it so far. I'm on reading sprints with my patrons. We had our book club live show for Listen for the Lie. That was our December book, and if you're interested, our January book is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. So we did that, and I'm doing reading sprints, and I'm making Suppa Toscana, the soup. I never made it before, so I'm trying to make it for dinner. So hopefully that'll be good, and I'm hoping to finish up the book tonight. I think I could definitely do it. I'm really excited to see how the book wraps up. I've heard people sob at the end, so I'm nervous to see if there are any tears that are gonna come, but I'm kind of heartless when it comes to books unless I'm like really attached to the characters. And I like Frankie, but I'm not attached to her like that, so we'll see if I cry at the end. I'll let y'all know, but I'm gonna go continue making my soup and listening to the audiobook. Last night I was reading The Women, and I had to take a break from it, which I will talk about in a second, but I ended up falling asleep during that break. So I finished it up this morning while I've been doing work because I have classes that start tomorrow, so I'm trying to like get ahead on everything for like work and whatever homework I already have. So I have finished it up, and I ended up absolutely adoring and loving this book. It's 5 out of 5 stars for me. I know like in the beginning part of this book I was like, oh, like I'm just really liking it, like it's a really good book, but like I wasn't like loving it, like it wasn't giving me like that 5-star like favorite of the year vibe yet, but it has now. Okay, it definitely has, because I think this book is absolutely stunning. First of all, Kristen Hanna's writing is so easy and digestible. It shows so much heart, emotion, and like the true feelings of the characters and what they're going through, but it makes it so much more accessible. Like most historical fiction, I feel like does not have accessible writing for the majority of people, and I think that's why she is so popular. And she told the story of characters whose story never gets told. Women who served in Vietnam are really forgotten, and like people tell them that they didn't serve in Vietnam. So that's really like what this book is about, is talking about the women's stories of those who did go over to Vietnam. I love that we have a mainstream book that talks about the story of real people in a fictional way that never gets told. And this book really broke my heart. Like that's why I had to take a break, because I started to cry, okay, in the last part of this book, and so I had to take a break, and then that's why I fell asleep. I feel like in this book we follow Frankie before she goes to Vietnam, and we see a little bit of that, and like we get some history, and then she goes to Vietnam and we are in the trenches with her, and then she comes back from Vietnam and she's trying to readjust, and we see her readjusting and not doing well, but she's readjusting to such a new life that it's not really a focus. And then I feel like this last part of the book really focused on Frankie's mental health, her PTSD, and her being denied help and care because they say that women weren't real veterans in Vietnam or didn't serve in Vietnam at all. And so seeing her struggle with these different things. What I really loved about Frankie's story is that even though she was a nurse who served in Vietnam, and me and her have completely different lives, I found so much in her story specifically related to her mental health and some of the things that she went through when she came back from Vietnam, very relatable for myself. That's really why I cried, because I saw so much of her story in my story, and it was just so relatable for me. And I think that is such a skill that I don't know if Kristen Hanna has in all of her books, but at least in this book, that she created a story that is completely different from mine, but I still was able to resonate with so many parts of her story. it was just so heartbreaking and phenomenal. And I was scared because I know a lot of people talk about how heartbreaking her books are. I was really scared at the end that it was going to be like super tragic in some sort of way. And I wouldn't say like wrapped up in a neat, nice bow and like it was super happy by any means, but it also wasn't like having me bawling because every character is dead. So I liked how it wrapped up. I think it's very realistic to real life. And I know it's kind of weird to say because this book did break my heart and it is so heartbreaking, but I truly enjoyed this entire book. It was so quick to read, so fast paced, and even though it is actually almost a 500-page book, I thought it was 470 pages, it's 471 pages. That's like 500-page book. Even though it's a 500-page book and the audiobook is 15 hours, I feel like I listened to this book extremely fast, basically in 2 days. I did finish it up today, but I only had like 30 minutes left. I just had to take a break because I was sobbing last night trying to do my diamond painting while listening to the audiobook. I do really wish I could have read this book physically, which is not something that I say a lot ever. And I don't know, I feel like I would have just loved the story physically. I'm such an audiobook reader, but I feel like this story would have been great physically, but obviously my book of the month was delayed, so I don't have the physical copy. I will say though that the audiobook I think is great. It is not like anything crazy, like it's not like mixed media whatever, but I think the audiobook narrator did a great job in the story and I really enjoyed the audiobook significantly, so I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend this book overall if you think you can handle a lot of heartbreaking things, like the things that she sees in Vietnam and then the experiences that she has afterwards is just so crazy. We not only see the horror of war, we see her losing people, and not just to death, but also to lies, to betrayal, and we see her mental health and how that impacts her. We see addiction in the story. There is a lot of trigger warnings for this book, so I would definitely look those up. There's like a big thing that I really resonated with in this story that I don't want to say because I feel like it's kind of a spoiler, but it's also a trigger warning. So if you have trigger warnings, I would definitely look into those. I just loved Frankie's story so much, and I really enjoyed all of the side characters in the story. There is multiple love interests, which is very interesting. Then she has these two best friends, and I loved seeing how these women care for each other and their friendship, because you would think like they came back from Vietnam, they live in completely different places, and it's way in the past, so we didn't have phones like this where we could just text each other or post on social media. Like they obviously could call each other and write letters, but that took way more time and it was something that you had to plan more, and it was not something you could do as often. So seeing how these women showed up for each other even after the war, even when they were married and they had kids, they truly were such a beautiful part of the story. Their friendship was stunning and I absolutely loved it. Like seeing the bond that they formed and then seeing that carry over throughout the whole rest of their lives. And then her parents plotline really like broke my heart because her relationship with Frankie evolved so much over the story, and seeing that was absolutely insanity. But I really like where it ended up in the end, and this book was just so good. Okay, I cannot stress it enough. Like even if you don't think you like historical fiction or you don't read historical fiction, I still highly recommend this book because I don't ever read historical fiction. I don't think in the past like 2-3 years I've read a single historical fiction book. Maybe like a historical horror or like a historical fantasy, but never like a straight up historical fiction. So even if you don't read historical fiction, I think that this is a story that could resonate with a lot of people, and it is so important. It's so easy to read, it's so digestible and bingeable. So I think like even if you think, oh my god, that book is so long, Kristen Hanna is scary, I don't really read historical fiction, pick up the book anyways, because that was me and I absolutely love this book. So next up, I think I'm going to move on to The Haar, which is a completely different vibe. I just know that is a horror book. A lot of people have been talking about this book in 2024. I don't think it came out in 2024 though, but specifically Gabby from Gabby Reads, I know really love this book, and then I've seen a lot of other booktubers talk about it as well, but someone mentioned it and I had it already checked out from the library, so I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity. The audiobook is only 7 hours, so I'm hoping to get a bulk of it, if not all of it, done today because I really want to try and read hella books. Okay, so I'm gonna start that audiobook and we'll see how far I get today.
Tell me if it's cash you like. You be acting classy like you don't really want it. You know that I blast you right. You can get it right on sight. If you really wanna talk that shit, I'm rooting for your Malibu rum. 5 steps from the beach, pouring up some shots, got me spinning like a
I feel like my hair looks insane. I don't know what's going on. I actually do know. It's because I went to the gym, so I put my hair up in a ponytail. So disregard my hair. It's way later in the day. It's literally past midnight, and I only made it 50% of the way into the book. How embarrassing. It's because I said I was going to lower my screen time this year, and I was doing good the past couple days, and last night, specifically today, I've fallen into the trap. But tomorrow, when I have class, I'm going to get back on the wheel. I'm going to listen to my audiobooks. When I'm getting ready for class, I'm going to listen to my audiobooks on the way and back from class. So I will get a lot of audiobook time in tomorrow. And hopefully, maybe I'll read on my Kindle at night as well. So I am 50% of the way into the horror, and as I said, I had no clue at all what this horror book was about, like not even a little bit, and I was kind of thrown off because immediately we're thrown into an audiobook with accents. That automatically throws me off. I don't know if I'm like accentist or something, like I don't know what it is, but accents in audiobooks throw me off, and sometimes I feel like they negatively impact my experience of the book, but actually it's not in this case. I thought at first, I was like, oh god, I don't like this, and then now I'm fine with it. So yeah, so we follow this older woman who lives close to the coast, and it has to be somewhere in like the UK. I don't know, I think it said it in the book, but I don't really remember exactly where it said, but she lives by the coast. She has a couple friends who also live on the coast with her, who that are also older, but there is this man who is like this multi-billionaire man coming in trying to buy up all of the homes in the area to make this golf course. So he's like already bought up all the homes of like the younger people, because even our main character saying like they get this money, like it's hella bread, so they get this money and they can just up and move and start a new life somewhere else. But for her, she has so many memories there. Her husband passed away about like 10 years prior to the story beginning, so she has like all her memories with her husband there. Her cottage has literally looked the same since her husband passed away, so she just doesn't want to leave. Her friends don't want to leave. They're very like stubborn in that way. Not saying that it's a bad thing, but they are being stubborn. So this is kind of like a big conflict in the story, is like they feel like they're being pushed out, and like as we are getting further into the book, we see their tactics of them trying to get these people to leave is becoming increasingly more concerning. Our main character though one day is just like walking by the ocean and sees like this amorphous blob of a creature, and she realizes that the creature is like in need of help. Like it needs help of some sort. Like it is not doing well. So she takes it back to her cottage and puts it in a bathtub full of water, and then it starts to like talk to her and saying that it's hungry, and then it begins to like feed on her and drink her blood. So that's really like what's going on, these two plot lines of this woman living here. She's getting pushed out by this billionaire trying to make a golf course, but then she also found this blob of a creature. She doesn't know what it is. It's talking to her. It feeds on blood. It's from the ocean, and I am finding this book pretty interesting. I don't think it's going to be a 5-star though. Like I'd be really surprised, because this is just not like my type of 5-star horror. I'm guessing it's going to be a 3.5 or a 4, because I am really enjoying it and I would recommend it, but I just don't think it's going to give me that 5-star feeling, or even like a 4.5 star feeling. Sometimes you just know, even if a book has nothing wrong that it's doing, sometimes you just know that it's not going to be a favorite, and that's okay, but you can still enjoy the book, and that's what's happening for me. I feel like even in my reviews on Goodreads, because I always leave at least like a one sentence or like a couple words on Goodreads. My Goodreads is always linked down below if y'all want to follow me. I be gagged because I forget that I just be having hella friends on there, and then like I'll go back at one of my reviews from like 2 weeks prior and I'll be like, okay, she has 20 likes, like now y'all actually reading my reviews. But even on there, I feel like in my reviews I have a need to justify why I'm never giving a book a full 5-star, and I don't know, I'm trying to really get out of that in 2025. That's not like a goal that I have, but it's just like a mental note that I've made over the past couple months of like, why do I feel the need to like justify why a book's not a 5-star? I feel like a book can do nothing wrong and still just not be a 5-star. But I do think it's because I try to think critically about my reading and really examine what worked for me in a book and what didn't, and help that navigate me going forward. But I don't think you always necessarily need a reason. It's good to examine your reading and think critically, but sometimes the book just wasn't a 5-star, but it was still a good book. And I feel like that's what's happening in this one. I am really invested actually in like the creature plotline. Like I want to know what's up with the creature and like what it is. But the other plotline of like the golf course, like I'm not that invested, and I think that's also another reason why it's detracting from my enjoyment a little bit, because we do have like this kind of silly element of like this ocean creature horror, and then we have like this really serious horror of like these billionaires really hurting people and seeing the effects of that. So I think like that dichotomy sometimes works for me, sometimes doesn't. And in this book it's working, but I'm not like in love, obsessed with it. I feel like in my first update I always give like the most amount of thoughts. I don't know why, but it's about time to go to bed because I have class tomorrow. My class is not till 11:45, but I still have class, so I'm trying to get up early. Maybe do a workout. We will see. So I'll continue listening to this audiobook as I get ready for bed, and then when I'm getting ready for class tomorrow, I'll probably finish it up and then start another audiobook when I'm going to class. So it's official. My first day of undergraduate degree is done. In 4 months' time, I will have 2 degrees. So I don't know where the time's gone. I don't know how this experience has passed by so fast, and I don't really understand how I got here. I still feel like I'm in high school, so this is kind of insanity that my life is just kind of like morphing into everything I could ever want it to be. But while I was getting ready for a class this morning, I finished up The Heart. I am giving this book 4 stars. A lot of people I know give this book 5 stars. Like, it has such a high rating on Goodreads for a horror, and I just feel like it's not a 5-star read for me, but I did really enjoy it. I love the themes of specifically like isolation and loneliness. I think that was so interesting, and seeing kind of how everybody is just supporting a capitalist venture and just going along with it because they're all benefiting from it and getting money, even if it's hurting other people. I think that's so prevalent in our colonialist capitalist society. So seeing that even happen to white people was a little bit interesting. I think it would have been more interesting if it did have commentary on like colonization specifically, but obviously the author is white, so I don't know if he would ever even have thought to put that in his book. But I still like the themes regardless of that. This had really good gore in it and kills, and following an older character really made me happy. Of course, we do have books now popping up with characters that are in like their 60s and 70s, but this main character is in her 80s, and so seeing her was really fascinating, especially for a horror book. I don't know if there's many horror books that I know that follow older characters besides We Spread by Ian Reid. So I think if you like this, you would like that book. If you like that book, you like this book for that main character element. They're very, 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 very different horror books. But if you like that older main character kind of exploration of that, I think you would enjoy both these books. And I feel like also Crossroads by Laura Hightower, if you enjoyed that one, I think you'd enjoy this one, and vice versa. Even though they are different and like the horror elements, the characters that we're following, I feel like they have similar themes and explorations in them. So I feel like if you like one, you'll probably like the other. But overall, it was a really good horror read, and I'm happy that I read it. So far we have a 5-star and a 4-star, so we're doing really well in this reading vlog. Actually, my subscribers really know where it's at. I have not completely solidified which of the books that I want to go with for this reading vlog. I'm kind of just mood reading from the options that I was given, but the next one that I want to go with, I think, is one that I physically own. It was one of the only ones that I physically own, so I feel like I was like, okay, I have to read it, and it's also on my 2025 TBR, so I was like, yeah, this is a sign that I have to read it, and that is Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. Okay, here she is, Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. I first heard about this book actually in 2023. I thought it was a 2023 release because my friend Kat from Kat Chats, she had this in her book bracket. She did that year because she didn't really read that many great books, so she didn't know what was her favorite book of the year. So she did a book bracket and it was in that. So it was one of her favorite books of the year, like some of her top books. So ever since then, I've had an eye on this one and I finally decided to pick it up. I just know this is a situation where I think people say it's like strangers on the train. I think that's right. Don't quote me on that. But it's like basically saying like, we're both having issues. We're strangers. I'll kill for you if you kill for me. And that's like what this book is about. I don't know much else about it. So I'm hoping to read this one pretty quickly. It is a little thriller, so I thought we would kind of mix it up. Have a historical fiction, a horror, and then a thriller. I'm really excited for this one and hopefully it's good.
You made me wanna leave, made me wanna die. It was all a dream, got lost in your eye. I could never leave when you were by my side. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough. Oh baby, you feel like torture. After all this time you're just a liar. You're burning in me just like fire. I'm just driven by my own desire. You know how to get me on my knees. All you want is for me to beg you, please. You know how to.
I'm actually doing sprints right there on Haley's Patreon. Haley is like my book bestie, Haley and Aspen. I have so many book besties though. And it's honestly been a couple days since I updated y'all because everything is collapsing. The start of the semester, 3 days ago. My 3rd day of the semester. Only my 2nd day of class today. Yesterday. My laptop falls spontaneously off the table and breaks. This is my old computer, okay? But I do graphic design work and my files are on my old computer, so I have to go get it fixed. Don't know how much it's gonna cost. Bought the computer today, but I couldn't even get to anywhere to fix it myself because my car is also in the shop. Well, it's not right now, but the driver's side door has not worked for like a month, so I've been having to crawl over the passenger side to get out, which after a month and having to run errands because you are doing Christmas shopping wears and tears on the body. Okay, I know I'm only 22, but my body was feeling it. Okay, so I finally gave it to my parents, whatever, not thinking anything of it, and then something like this happens and I can't just get in my car and go. Tragedy. But I got my car back because it's Thursday and the part doesn't come till Tuesday, so they're letting me have my car until Tuesday when it comes so they can fix it. And I can open it from the inside now, so that's like half the amount of crawling. Right? Okay, anyways. But I've only made it halfway into Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh, and I'm really happy that I'm reading this book. I don't know if I said earlier that I tried to read 13 by this author as a buddy read, I think last year or 2023, I can't remember, and we both ended up DNFing. It was a soft DNF for me. I do plan on picking it back up, especially because I do own it and I love a legal thriller. So I wasn't sure going into this one, but a lot of my friends rave and love this book. So I was like, I gotta pick it up and I'm interested. That says a lot because I did not have one 5-star thriller in 2024. I didn't. And I was just like, the thrillers are not hitting. So I really hope they hit this year. Like, I know this is backlist, but I'm reading it, and then obviously people like Ashley Winstead are coming out with a book. They didn't come out with one in 2024. Then we also have the King, S.A. Cosby. He's coming out with a book, didn't come out with one in 2024. So I'm hoping that I get some good thrillers this year, and this one is starting it off very well. So we follow this main character Amy in New York City, and something happened very tragically in her family where she basically lost the family that she had, her nuclear family, like her kid and her husband. I'm not going to say all the details, but something happened with her family, and obviously that was very traumatic and distressing for her. And one day she randomly meets this other woman who is a stranger named Wendy, who also had something very tragic happen in her life, and they decide that they are going to have like a strangers on the train type situation where it's like, we're strangers, nobody knows that we're connected, so I'll kill for you if you kill for me. So we're following them. We actually don't get Wendy's perspective throughout the book. I looked through audiobooks. I have the audiobook. I looked through the chapters of the audiobook because I have that as well, and we don't ever get Wendy's perspective, so that's interesting. But we do get Amanda's, and then we also follow this other character named Ruth. And Ruth, she just went through a traumatic event where she was alone home at night in New York City. She shares this house with her husband, and he just wasn't home. She was there. A man broke in and mutilated her with a knife. She had to undergo surgery. She doesn't even know she can have kids anymore because of what he did to her. So we're getting her perspective, and then we also end up getting her husband Scott's perspective as well, which is very interesting to me because I'm like, why do we get Scott's perspective but not Wendy's? Like, that's very intriguing to me, and I'm just really interested because I want to see how this is all connected. First of all, I don't understand how Ruth and Scott are connected to Amanda and Wendy. Like, I want to know the connection there. And then I also want to know why we don't get Wendy's perspective, but we get Scott's perspective. I have no idea. I'm just pointing things out. I have no idea what happens in this book. I'm halfway through, as I said, and we do kind of have some stuff going on in the book so far that I obviously can't talk about because it's spoilery. In the halfway point of this book, we do kind of get like a twist, and then some other things are happening with characters that I didn't think that they would happen with. So I'm just very, very intrigued so far. Even the recent thriller that everybody was loving in 2024, Listen for the Lie, the twist doesn't happen until 91% of the way into the book. Okay, I like when books have twists throughout, even if it's not a lot, at least keep me intrigued. Like, introduce me to the story, build up some tension, have a twist, have the fallout, have the end twist. Like, that's what I like at least, or have twist back, have twist. That's what I like. That's why I'm picking up a thriller, for twists. That's what I like about them, or to cover like darker material, darker content. So I want to be thrilled, and like Listen for the Lie, I wasn't thrilled. I'm sorry, but I wasn't. I thought it was a well executed thriller. It was engaging, but it wasn't thrilling. This book, I feel like, is thrilling because I am in suspense. I want to know what's happening. I want to know how this is connected. I'm actually interested and intrigued and invested, and I cannot say that about the recent thrillers that I've been reading that people have been loving, like Strange Sally Diamond and Listen for the Lie. Not me having the eyes interested. Honestly, there's not much else that I have to say about this book because it is a thriller, so I feel like the majority of the plot is spoilery. I'm really excited to finish this one up. I am on sprints, as I said. We're probably going to get off soon, but I probably will still finish this one up tonight because I don't have much left, and as I said, I want to know what's happening, and I don't have class again. It's basically my weekend. I have a 4-day weekend from Friday to Monday, so I don't have to go to sleep super early because I don't have to sit through class and everything like that and like not fall asleep. So I'm going to go read this because we're only doing a 30-minute sprint, and I've already been talking for 7 minutes and 50 seconds now. Probably a lot shorter for y'all because, you know, sometimes I just be sitting here trying to think about what I'm gonna say. I have to like think before I speak sometimes. So I'm gonna go read this because I'm really interested and I need to know how this is all connected. I need to know. I've taken a bit of a hiatus from this vlog because I was actually participating, or I am participating, I should say, in Winterween. And so since Winterween started, I decided to read my TBR for that and put this vlog on a hiatus for now. And I was vlogging that video, but it just wasn't turning out how I wanted it to. And I really wasn't reading that many books in the beginning. I've kind of picked up the pace now, but I wasn't reading too many books and it just wasn't turning out. Plus, I know last month in December, my camera broke, and then in January, 3 days into the semester, my computer broke. So I've been dealing with that, and so I haven't been able to edit videos for a couple of days. I've been behind, so I'm like, okay, a video has to go, like something has to leave because I cannot post all of this beginning of year content and all these vlogs and everything that I want to do. So Winterween is going because she wasn't even turning out how I wanted her to. So I decided to haul these with y'all instead on this vlog, and that is my monthly subscription boxes. It's a little low. Let's fix her. I'm using a tripod different than my usual tripod. Sometimes I use this one, sometimes I don't, but I'm using a different tripod because also my tripod is broken. Everything's breaking. We are going to do my subscription boxes because I try to fit these into vlogs because I feel like they're fun. I like when people fit them into vlogs. I get my Aardvark book club box, which I honestly prefer, but book of the month, I feel like last year in the beginning I thought about canceling it, but then they started picking up and getting books that I really have been interested in, and as you can see, my book of the month box is huge this month because it had add-ons and stuff that I wanted. So I do have both. I enjoy both. I see the problems with book of the month specifically, but I like getting subscription boxes. I really like both of these, and I will continue to get both of them because they're really easy. Like if there's a book that I'm not interested in that month, I can just skip. So it's really not that big of a deal. But with book of the month, I haven't really had a time where I skipped like 20 times in a row. Not 20, let's not be dramatic. I haven't had any time where I've skipped more than 2 months in a row, like never that. So if it came to the point where I was skipping like 3, 4, 5 months in a row, then I would consider canceling it, but that hasn't happened to me. So I get both. First, we're going to start off with my Aardvark, and I only have one book this month. I don't even remember picking out this book, but that is also what I love about these subscription boxes is that they have a mixture of books that I'm interested in, that I'm intrigued in, that I already have on my list, but then also books that I've never heard of before that are in genres that I like to read. So apparently I got this book After the Ocean. I don't remember what this book is about at all. I barely remember picking it, so let's read what it is together. Honestly, this is like hard to read because it's in script, but it says, how do you find your way back when you've left yourself behind? Filled with emotion and intrigue in this compelling novel, a painful unsolved mystery from one woman's past resurface years later and sends her on a mission that will impact her family in ways they could never have expected. It's apparently about musicians that were married in Puerto Rico, and the husband vanished from their honeymoon cruise, leaving the wife devastated and the prime suspect in his disappearance. And I guess something begins to resurface years later, and it's about 3 women who begin to have their lives intertwined. And here is the bookmark for the month. I can't even get it with my nails. It'd be so difficult. Here's the bookmark. I really like it. I think that it's cool. Let me see if I could do the little hand, the little beauty guru hand. I like it. I think that it's cool. And of course, here's the little card with all the books that they have for this month. And there is a challenge that they do as well. And then now we're moving on to the meat, and that is book of the month because they had a lot of books that I wanted. Plus, they had a lot of books that I wanted as add-ons and as their actual picks. That's what I really do like too, is that they always have new add-ons. Sometimes I do wish that they were just general picks because sometimes I have to wait to get them, but that's okay. I'm opening it from the bottom because on top is my address and I didn't want y'all to see. Here is the monthly bookmark. It says pause for dramatic effect. Do y'all like the new book of the month style of bookmarks with it at the top because it peeks out of your book versus what they used to have? So on the bottom, I think I know what this one is. If I could get it out. Ow, my nail. Okay. It is The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. I really wanted to pick this one up because this is the memoir of Ruby Frankie's daughter, who, if you don't know, was a family vlogger who's Mormon and has been convicted of abusing her children. So I am really interested in reading this memoir. It just came out in January. It was an add-on. And then this book is one that I read from this reading blog, The Women by Kristen Hanna. I really am happy that I got this book because I added this to my box before I even read The Women, so I didn't know if I wanted a physical copy or not, but I thought that I would like it, so I decided to add it. It kind of shipped late because I guess this book delayed the box, and so The Women, I'm really happy to have a physical copy because I love this book. As y'all saw, I literally sobbed. And then we have Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This is a new release as well. It came out in December. It was a December book of the month pick, and I don't know, I didn't hear about a new Alice Feeney, so when I was looking through the book picks in December, I didn't even realize this was an Alice Feeney book, and I didn't grab it. So I got it this month because it's also my Patreon book club pick. I don't know how I missed it in December, but I just did. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this one because a lot of people said that this is like one of her most unhinged and best works. So I'm really excited to be reading that with my Patreon. And then I think I have 2 more books. Yes, I got A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. This one is also on my anticipated releases of the year. I have not read an Adrienne Young before, I don't think, but this one is about a woman investigating her twin brother's mystery, and I think it has to do with like fantasy elements, but it's also a mystery. So I'm excited for that book. I was trying to get the books that were on my anticipated releases of the year. And then lastly, I have The Favorites by Lane Fargo, another one of my anticipated releases of the year because I love They Never Learned by this author, but this is actually an ice skater romance, I think. So I'm excited to see what this one is about because I've only read a thriller from her. 4 of the books that I got this month from Book of the Month were anticipated releases for 2025. Like on my official spreadsheet that I have to keep track of my releases, they were all on there, so I'm really happy about that. These were all January releases that I heard of that I've been excited for. 2 new authors and 2 repeat authors, and then The Women was one that I already read and loved, and then Aardvark has given me a book that I've never heard of before, but I'm excited to pick up nonetheless. And I don't think I ever updated y'all at the end of Kill for Me, Kill for You, so I should do that now. Kill for Me, Kill for You, I do have the physical copy, but it's currently over there, and this one I ended up giving, I think, 4 stars because I really liked it. I liked how everything connected in the end. It honestly really shocked me. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. I feel like this is a thriller that really kept me on the edge of my seat and intrigued the whole time, which I cannot say about some of the thrillers I've been reading lately. A lot of thrillers have been boring me lately, and I just want something that's going to keep me intrigued the whole time, the full way through, and this book did that. But the reason I could not give it a full 5 stars, even though I really liked the characters, I liked how everything connected. I think it was so well plotted, and I liked the writing. It kept me intrigued. I love the plot twist. Like, everything about it was so good except the mental health representation. And as someone who is literally about to graduate with a degree in psychology in a couple months, I just cannot give it a full 5 star. It just doesn't sit right with me. I feel like there was so much misinformation in this book about mental health. Not necessarily that the representation was terrible. It was honestly kind of garbage. I read worse, for sure. Like, I read 10 times worse representation than what was in this book, but that doesn't mean that it was good. And as I said, I feel like there was just like a lot of misinformation about like types of therapy and like how mental health operates. And I just didn't really like that. It didn't sit well with me. And I feel like if you are writing a book that has a big concentration on mental health and it's not related to personal experiences, that you need to have some sort of consult that you are consulting about mental health. Sorry, the TV went off. I was using it for a bit of lighting because I had LED lights that went around my living room, but they literally have died. Like, I don't know what happened, and they're all the way up there. I had to put them up there with a ladder. So, they're not going to get fixed anytime soon, if probably at all. So, back to the book anyways. I just feel like the mental health rep was really, really trash. So, yeah, it's not great. I would recommend a thriller if you can overlook the mental health representation. I know some people don't really care about that, aren't gonna notice. Like, a ton of people have rated this book highly and said nothing about the mental health representation in this book. So I feel like if you're gonna be one of those people, fine, read it. Like, I'm not gonna judge you. Hopefully no one else is gonna judge you for what you're reading. But I will say that it just was not the best in my personal opinion. But as I said, a lot of people that I know who do care about mental health representation, and I've called out thriller books that have had bad mental health representation, have not said anything about the representation in this book. So So maybe it's fine for the majority of the people. For me, it just didn't sit right with me personally. The next one that I'm going to read is I Who Have Never Known Men. This one is a classic that I believe was republished, and it's more like a dystopian. It is on my Libby app, so that's kind of why I want to pick this one up, because a lot of the other books that I do want to read for this vlog, I would have to buy the audiobook, and I just am sick of buying audiobooks, and I want to use my library. Just sometimes my library doesn't have the books that I want, and it's like a struggle. But I think I'm going to go with that one. I'm really interested to see like what it is, what it's about. I'm excited about that one for sure.
Pretty girl, Abigail, Fur, pretty girl, Bacon Bear, Bacon Bear, Bacon Bear, pretty girl, curly hair, she wavy, pretty girl, everywhere.
The last book I decided to pick up for this reading vlog is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, I believe her name is. This book, unfortunately, I did not like, okay? I read the entirety of this book. I did do a midway update, but for some reason there was a whine in the back of the entire clip, which I actually filmed 3 videos, and then also that clip that all have that whine in it, and I figured it out, fixed it, but that clip, I kind of disposed of her because I didn't want to give y'all a headache. But in that clip, I was basically like, oh, this book just isn't hitting for me yet, but I know a lot of people have been loving this one. This book is a classic that was originally published in the 90s, and I believe the author is French, and then it was translated to English. And it recently got republished, I believe in 2022, I want to say. But I saw this on a lot of people's favorites list. So I was like, okay, let me just pick this one up. A lot of people have been hyping it up. So let me try her out. But she just wasn't for me. And this will be basically follow a woman who is in this prison type thing with other women, and these women have no idea why they're there. A lot of them can remember their past lives, but our main character is younger and she doesn't really remember anything before this, so she's kind of confused why they're there. She doesn't really know anything about men because she is younger, and that is like a big part of this book. Obviously, I Who Have Never Known Men, because the guards are men, whatever, but then there's also kind of like this idea that on the outside it may not be what we know Earth to be. This book really wasn't for me because what I described to you was like the most interesting part to me, and that was really only like the first third of this book. The last 2/3 of this book were extremely repetitive and boring to me. Even though this book was trying to say so much about isolation, I think especially in the last 2/3 of this book, I feel like that just didn't land for me. I feel like just because you have something in your book, like just because a character is isolated, doesn't mean you're actually saying anything meaningful about isolation. And this is something that I've had a lot of issues with lately, specifically with literary fiction, where I feel like literary fiction books are not saying anything meaningful. Like they're trying, but they're not delivering. And I don't know if it's because we're supposed to like, oh, like come to our own conclusions and like think and do whatever. I want you to really actually say something in your book and it not just be nothing. And I have had books that are more like subtle in their commentary that I do enjoy. They're subtle. It's there, but it's subtle. This book to me, it just wasn't there. Like it was an attempt, but it didn't actually execute what it was trying to do. And this one, I feel like I went into it thinking, oh, I Who Have Never Known Men. Like I thought this was gonna have so much commentary on gender and gender stereotypes, and it did a little bit, but not really as much as I would like for this being the title. I really wanted so much gender commentary, and this one just didn't have that for me. I just felt like this book was boring, it was repetitive, and I feel like the commentary really was like non-existent. I think I said in my Goodreads review that this is a book that literally added nothing to my life at all. Like nothing. No value at all. Like it's something that I will literally forget about in 2 years and never think about again. So just for that reason alone, I had to give this one 2 stars. And I hate when I get recommendations from people specifically, or I call up people by name and be like, hey, like I'm reading this book because of you, and then I don't like it. But I have to, you know, say my actual thoughts and opinions on a book. I'm not gonna lie because someone recommended it to me. So yeah, this book is getting 2 stars from me. Hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I had so much filming it. Thank you to everybody who sent in their best books of the year. Most of the books in this video were such bangers. Like The Women is one that I would have never picked up on my own that I absolutely loved. Kill for Me, Kill for You, and The Heart were both amazing, and I'm really glad that I was able to read a hyped book and see if it was gonna be for me or not. So thank you again to everybody who sent in recommendations for this video. If you made it to the end, leave the little stethoscope emoji for the nurses that were discussed in The Women by Kristen Hanna, and I will see you on my next one. Bye everybody.
You got the nerve to be on me, taking your life at a high